All right, let's dive in. We are going to break down a really simple, but honestly super powerful rule for mastering motivation. And it all starts with a problem I am sure you've run into before. So, think about it. You decide you're going to learn something new, right? A language, a musical instrument, maybe a new workout routine. You start out super excited, totally fired up, but then it just fizzles out. Either it's so easy you get bored, or it's so hard you get totally overwhelmed and just want to quit. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's this classic trap we all fall into. On one side, you've got tasks that are just, well, they're so simple your brain just checks out completely. On the other side, you're facing a challenge that feels like a mountain, and it just floods you with anxiety. Neither one is going to keep you going.
But what if I told you there's a perfect spot right in the middle? A kind of sweet spot where motivation doesn't just hang on, it actually thrives.
You see, our motivation isn't some straight line, it's actually a curve, and it peaks right in that sweet spot of just manageable difficulty. This is where the magic really happens, a challenge that's not too easy and not too hard, but, you guessed it, just right.
And this whole idea has a very fitting name, one you probably recognize. It's called the Goldilocks rule. So here's the deal with the rule. To stay motivated for the long haul, you have to work on tasks that stretch you just a tiny bit. It needs to be a challenge, for sure, but a challenge where you feel like victory is actually within reach. And get this isn't just some nice-sounding idea. It's a well-established psychological principle. It's called the Yerkes-Dodson law, and it basically shows that our performance peaks at this optimal level of mental stimulation, that perfect midpoint between being bored out of your mind and being totally stressed out. Okay, so theory is great, but what does this look like in the real world? Well, let's take a look at the strategy of an absolute master of his craft, the comedian Steve Martin. He never just rested on his past success, but he also didn't just throw out his entire act and start from scratch. No, he lived in that perfect sweet spot, constantly and carefully refining what he did. His method was just brilliant. See, most of his routine was made of jokes he already knew would get a laugh. Those were his guaranteed wins. But every single show, he would add just a minute or two of brand new stuff. That was his manageable challenge. It allowed him to grow and get better without ever risking a complete bomb. And here's where it gets even cooler. When you operate in this Goldilocks zone, it does more than just keep you motivated. It actually unlocks one of the most productive and enjoyable states of mind you can be in.
It's called a flow state. You know that feeling, right? When you're completely in the zone, so absorbed in what you're doing that the rest of the world just kind of melts away. Time disappears, you're not second-guessing yourself, you're just performing at your absolute best. Well, the Goldilocks rule is the key that unlocks it.
Believe it or not, scientists have even tried to put a number on the perfect level of challenge to trigger this state, and what they found is surprisingly specific.
Their research suggests that the sweet spot, the optimal challenge, is something that is about 4% harder than your current skill level. Not 0% harder, because that's boring, and not 20% harder, because that's overwhelming. Just 4%.
Now, of course, you're not going to walk around with a calculator trying to measure the difficulty of every task in your life. The real takeaway here is the principle. Consistently push yourself right to the very edge of your comfort zone. That is where growth and motivation live.
So what all this really shows is that genuine self-improvement, it's not about making these huge, dramatic leaps. It's about maintaining a delicate balance so you can fight off the true enemy of progress. And that villain isn't failure. Not at all. Failure is just feedback. It's how we learn. No, the real villain is boredom. That's the silent killer of our goals. It's that feeling that makes us quit when the novelty wears off and everything just starts to feel routine.
So, beating this villain, it takes a conscious effort. You have to actively look for those small, manageable challenges. You have to chase that little feeling of victory that comes with making just enough progress. And you have to find ways to keep things fresh and engaging.
So I'll leave you with this one final question. Think about a goal you have right now. What is one small step you could take that's just on the edge of your abilities? What is your 4% challenge?